Hoop Dreams, the podcast, an Unlearning Network production.
We got this thing we want to do with you, man. It's called halftime. And we're going to hit you with some quick hitters before we jump into your Hollywood life. So I'm gonna hit you with some questions. Agee gonna hit you with some questions. So let me jump this thing off with this one. I'm gonna say some shows, and you tell me which one that you are watching: Family Feud or The Price is Right.
What's the third option?
That is. We're gonna move on. That is.
No, I feel like I love the idea of like sitting down and watching the game show. That sounds like amazing, but that's just not what life looks like right now. Like 2 kids and all the sports and all the stuff I'm trying to do with work and trying to be a decent guy. You know, it's just like there's so much. I would love to sit down and watch both of those, like back to back maybe, but it's just it just doesn't fit in right now.
I got you. Well, then I'm gonna bring it home. Then make it a little closer. Original Dynasty or the new Dynasty?
It's interesting. I think the original is kind of the first of that like shock and awe TV where it's like that first kind of, for me, what, you know, just for myself, feeling like I got to tune in next fall and was not allowed to watch TV in my house growing up. Wow. So that's probably why I moved here. Like I showed them, but because my dad was a professor and was like, read. If you have free time, you read. If you're not reading, you're outside working on your game or whatever. So, but Dynasty was something that my mom was just into. So it was like, I guess I'm watching this.
Absolutely.
But oddly, like, you know, so into those kind of plot twists.
I like that. Yeah. It was like that for me too.
Yeah.
The original Mission Impossible or the $6 Million Man. Come on, Jason.
I mean, I feel like Cruise does his own stunts or wants everyone to think he does, which I respect. So I think that, and the franchise alone,
it's huge.
Like,
it's huge.
A lot of them, but
you didn't want to be the Bionic Man.
I mean, but but like I said, like I managed maybe my expectations.
I got
what I could, like I can't do that, so I guess why even go there?
Right. I feel you on that one. All right, let's bring a little comedy into it. The Jamie Foxx Show or Martin.
Martin is so good, so sharp.
Yeah.
But Fox like did everything.
Yeah,
I feel like if you loved like that sharp quick, it's Martin. But if you wanted to watch someone just sit down on a piano and be captivating, or be dramatic, or be funny, or be whatever, it's Fox. You know, it's just he's so versatile and well rounded. I think Fox. I gotta say Fox.
Yeah, triple threat,
sure.
Man, triple threat. And my last one, man, Succession or Billions?
Succession. Like
he jumped right on that one.
Real quick. Yeah, for sure. Like I think just in Billions, I think does it in a really, really great way as well. But the ability to get you to root for and like the most despicable, mean-spirited people on the planet and feel for them and like root for them as a writer is just so compelling and is such a difficult thing to balance and do. And that cast draws you in a way where you feel for them. It's really amazing. Yeah. I love that show.
Billions not good no more. It's Axe went to jail.
Oh, got it.
They got, Axe gone. They cut Axe.
Well, it feels like that's like what they were building to, so I maybe don't have to watch it since you just said what happens in it.
Right.
Maybe I'll skip
Spoiler alert.
Jason, rank these shows in order of your favorite.
Okay.
Narcos, Snowfall, Queen of the South, Top Boy, The Wire.
I mean, The Wire, top. And Brandon McLaren, who you guys talked to, is a very close friend of mine.
Brandon J.
Which makes me want to put Snowfall farther down. But it's hard to.
Right.
I would say that's second. And I like Queen of the South just because it was like, I like stuff where it's out of the norm. And so the fact that it was a woman in a predominantly male-driven cartel lifestyle that she's just like unapologetically who she is and doesn't back down from anybody. I felt was really cool at a time where that's more and more important. I think, so and that's in there. Maybe because I don't remember the other ones. That's just my top three.
Yeah, the other ones was Top Boy and Narcos.
And Narcos kind of similar, I think, to why I like Succession. So maybe those two kind of fall around the same. But I love just like the ability to kind of drop into a world that I don't know and feel that it feels authentic, and you feel like you're just riding next to someone that you can't imagine what that life is like, but it just pulls you in a really cool way.
Who was your favorite character that you've written for?
Not Brandon McLaren.
Not Brandon.
Very difficult on set. Very difficult. No, he's great. Like, it's interesting. Like, and truly, like someone like him is like the best of it to me because it's someone who shows up prepared all the time and has real passion for what he's doing. And I think a lot of times like anyone's not complaining, but like having notes on something or asking about something that's kind of perceived as difficult. But to me, it's like it shows that you care about your performance and you want it to be what the writers were thinking, what the director has in mind. And so I think like, but he's someone who's like so professional. But Ellen Pompeo, who just like from Grey's was fantastic. Like that whole cast over there, Chandler, Kevin, like it's just that whole cast is amazing. They turn around each week and make it feel compelling. And it's such a great cast. It's hard to pinpoint. I don't know. It's and me, like I just love the process, I think. And so anyone that's like about that and not about drama and just about showing up and working hard, I'm with for sure.
All right, Red Ranger, you're getting a lot of love today. Jason giving you a lot of love today.
I can't wait for my, like, it looks like we got posters and hats. Like, I can't wait for my swag to show up.
You're going to get a swag bag.
Out. I can't wait. That's going to be nice. Bag. Yeah, that'll be nice.
Absolutely.
Jason, what are your 3 shows you are watching right now? If you have time, when you have time.
Yeah, I think, like I said, Succession, just in terms of just like studying how they craft their stories and how they, I love that twists and turns you don't see coming. And Euphoria, I feel like is just like so visceral. Like it's I like stuff that makes me feel like uncomfortable or happy in an extreme way. And that show, it's just like you typically would cut out of a scene. And I feel like that show makes you sit there for another 10 minutes through the rest of it, where normally they would cut out. And it's just that cast is so amazing and just was really, I think, informed the type of shows that I'm developing, where you can take someone that traditionally you wouldn't like in Succession and make you root for them, or Euphoria, and like really not sugarcoat what kids are maybe going through today, and not shying away from that real authentic experience because it's maybe objectionable or offensive or whatever it is, but that's what they're dealing with. And so I like shows that approach that in that terms. I would say those like stand out for sure.
I love that. How old are your kids?
I just turned 11 and 9 this past month. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm surprised that you didn't name a kids show because when you got young kids.
I mean, those are on such a loop. I mean, those if I liked any of those at the beginning, that's gone by now for sure. Like those like theme songs and like one-liners, that's all we hear now. So it's like and just finding TV time, right? Like so, you have a full house, it's just finding time to sit down and watch. And like I'm a sports guy, so like that's a little bit way to unwind, and it's hard to watch shows without and like turn off the brain and just kind of enjoy it without trying to figure out what they're doing or where they're going or trying to break it down. So like sports for me is like that kind of an escape.
That's where you full-time parents are still at. See, mines are gone and grown. So that's you and Agee. So a director you like to write for and an actor you like to write for.
I like writing for Kevin McKidd at Gray's,
Okay.
who directs a ton of those episodes of the show and is obviously on the show. But I love his approach. Having done so many, still pushes to find creative ways to shoot a hallway that's been shot for 18 years. That same hall, and so is really move the camera in really interesting ways, and was just like so collaborative to work with, and kind of molding it as it goes. He was always really, really great, and there's a handful of men and women kind of that fall into that for me. I think actor.
Yeah, because you know what? I'm still trying to figure out how the hell on Graceland the outside world don't know about this compound.
I mean, they're very good at what they did. They're very,
like, what the hell is going over at that beach house?
And what's with all the guns kind of going in and out?
Right. I'm just walking my dog. Passes.
Here's the thing, like, you guys asked for like my favorites, but like I have to go back into the world and then get asked why they weren't someone I mentioned. Like, that's like I still have to go back out there and like
right. They be like, "Hey, Jason, I seen you on the OG podcast, man. What the fuck's up with that, man?"
I can't name that, but yeah.
Okay, let's jump on your music, Jason. Who you listening to right now on your playlist?
I like old stuff, like old hip hop.
You're 90s hip hop
for sure.
90s is the best hip hop,
and even like 50. Like I like that, like in the 2000s, just like more of that older stuff, I guess. Which is funny because you'll be out like somewhere and you'll hear it now again. It's like hits you how old we are, where it's like it's ironic now that you're playing this. It's not that it's good, So it's like it's funny that stuff comes back around, but and then just like background, like I like background, like I'll write to music, but it's like nothing that is too distracting. Throwing like some lo-fi beats, just like nice hotel music, probably. Just that's in the background. So I'll do that a lot, and there's a lot of Olivia Rodrigo in that. Like both my daughters play piano and guitar, and so I play guitar, and so that's on repeat in the house a lot. Olivia Rodrigo, so they're keeping me hip.
So let me tell you what I just heard, Agee. He writing songs. He got an album coming out shortly. That's all I heard him say a few minutes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Dad manager,
I'm playing, I'm writing, and he's recruiting his kids with him. That's what I heard.
I'm waiting for them to take over. Right. I'm tired.
I love it. Jason, give me your two most memorable theme songs from a TV show.
I like Cheers. It was always like Cheers. And Seinfeld. Seinfeld for me was just like, I feel like you heard that, the bum bum bum. It just, you just knew it was going to be a good time. Like, and I feel like those two.
Let me tell you the one that I love the theme. I love the TV show, but I hate it when it used to come on. MASH. Because it was always on Sunday night, and you knew it was time to go to school.
Yeah.
It came on after the news, right?
Right. Yeah. The A-Team was dope. I thought that was like the Fall Guy. Like I'm grew up, I think, with all those kind of car driven shows. Knight Rider was dope. Like, and so I think that kind of brought like a huge like love cars and automobiles, And so I think maybe just growing up with all those, but I feel like those intros were so good. The Fall Guy and Knight Rider and all those.
Well, Jason, man, we appreciate you doing halftime with us. You graduated from high school, from college. You're in California. Man, tell us what happened. I mean, how did you get into writing? How did show business become the goal for you?
Yeah. I think writing was always kind of pushed by my dad and pushed against it so hard. Just as kids, that's what we do, I think. And then in college, had a English and a writing class that I just took to, and just loved that process and loved being able to start a conversation about something, you know, and have a opinion, and that it can be discussed and isn't necessarily the opinion. And so that for me was kind of the first kind of spark of it. And like in this English class, this guy in the basketball team and I would go to Taco Bell and buy a bean burrito and a hard taco, and like open the bean burrito and put the hard taco inside of it and like fold it back up. So it was like the double decker kind of now. And was in that English class, and like we were writing this persuasive piece on like the death penalty and like all these like really big kind of topics. And I was like, what if I follow like all the rules and write this persuasive piece on building the Baracco, which we called it, not as good as double decker, for branding, but the Baracco. And so I like followed all the rules and like wrote, here's why you should try it. Here's how you make it. Here's why it's worth doing. And just got to see me on the top of paper from the professor, and like needed the class. I was like, fuck. Like he's probably thinking I'm just like fucking around, and like, and just went in and it was just like, this is the best persuasive piece I've ever read. And it was just like, oh shit. What? Like, and so to have that worry of like, oh, he might, you know, I just fucked this up, but and it's like that noise that we were talking about earlier of like, he could have shot that down there and said, you just failed this class. I told you to do this thing on a big topic. You chose this. But instead, like, nurtured that, whatever that was that I was doing. And that for sure was a huge influence on wanting to write. And just that you can take an assignment and turn it on its head like that and still do well, but do it from a different way and different perspective. And I think I've been kind of chasing that idea with like stuff I'm trying to create and do and make on my own, that's taking traditional things a little bit and coming at from a different angle. So I think that's that's kind of where that came from. And then, you know, not going, like I said, didn't go to film school, was in school for business and didn't have contacts down in LA.
It wasn't a traditional route for you.
No, not at all. Yeah. And, you know, got the speech of why I shouldn't do it. And then just came down and would sneak onto the lots and pass out my resume to like
on the lots.
Like at like Universal, there's like all these like little bungalows with all the production houses. And so I kind of found if you wore a sport coat and like had a phone up to your ear and just walk quickly, like people didn't want to interrupt you or stop you. And like you acknowledge them. So it's not like you're sneaking by them, but you're like, I see you, but I'm too busy to stop. So I gotta go. And so just did that and like would get kicked out half the time. And the other half, people were like, that's cool. And we'll just take it. And if we have something, we'll call you. And just kind of did that for a while, you know, and did that and was lucky to get on shows around great supportive people and would serve coffee and deliver scripts around LA and to actors' homes before, not before the internet, but before they wanted to use the internet, maybe to open up a script. But like, so we were driving around town with them. But yeah, I just kind of kept clawing down that path, and essentially got film school. I think being an assistant for 4 or 5 years before getting that kind of break was feet on the ground kind of school for me, and saw it from the bottom up. And I think it's served me well since then. Seeing how everything works and seeing what it means to put a script out late at night for everyone else involved and what they have to do after that point where we go home. It's like they're there for so many hours prepping. And so just being aware of that, having gone through it, I think has helped serve me in kind of how I approach my job in a lot of ways. But at the time it was tough as you see all your friends in their careers and doing well and you're serving coffee for $450 a week. It's just like, it's a grind, but it's just that mentality of keeping your head down. And I think the running and the basketball and what it takes to push yourself past that point when you want to stop, that athletes do every day. It's just like, that applies to so many things in life. And if you're able to kind of push when you're tired, it's at some point, like you'll get an opportunity. I think like if you're willing to put in that work and are patient, I think there are opportunities, you know?
Yeah. Jason, if I was you and getting kicked off them lots, I would have just been lying my butt off. I would have been like, hey, man, I'm the gaffer on Modern Family. I'm just walking. I'm over. I had to go get some out somebody's car. Next day, they try to kick me off the lot. Hey, I'm the lighting director. I'm the assistant lighting director over here on Lot B. Yeah, we shooting over there today.
But that gets you put on a list. See, you would have been on a list and only been able to do that once. Me, I knew I had to come back the next day. I was like, oh, sorry.
Right.
Like, just
You're
play
like,
dumb.
damn, they asking me back.
You're starting to fight.
Did a good
like,
job.
You're like, give me your superiors. I'm the guy. Like, you're blowing that place up day one.
Speaking of that, were there days that you didn't want to come back? And how did you overcome that?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I think, like, you know, how to X a girlfriend be like, but what are you going to do really for like a career? Like, I got that talk, you know, where, and you do see people around you. It's just like, but are you just going to serve coffee and scripts and do that? You know, it's like, and it's hard, like when people you care about are now wavering, you know, because it's one thing you come down, you just like step into a thing, and it happens all the time. And it happens where people go 20 years and just haven't had that shot. And it has nothing to do with talent. It's just like you walk into that room and you're prepared for what they ask for. Like, it's the work you do, but it's outside of that, you can't really control it. And so it was hard for sure hearing people around me suddenly start to waver on it. And then, like, kind of shortly after that, got my first break in writing, but like got my real estate license, I think, at that point a little bit, because that creeps in more and more when people you care about are like, but what are you really doing with your life? Like, how are you going to like pay for shit? Like, but a good question, you know, at the time it was so offensive, but like, you know, they're good questions and stuff that certainly I was denying, you know, at the time maybe, and like just not allowing myself to kind of let that seep in, because it's a distraction and you don't have that motivation. And so if you don't have that, it just becomes so hard to already do a difficult thing. And so for sure have those moments. Yeah.
And like you said, hearing it coming from somebody you love and somebody you care about, you know, they know you, it's almost like they shooting your dream down or your opportunity down before it even happens. And I know how you thinking in the back of your head, because it's similar to how I was thinking. Well, it just ain't happened yet. Like, you know, don't put me in a bad place, in a bad headspace to think like, you know, doubting myself, doubting my talents. Like, I know if I get the right break or get in the right room, like it will happen.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And like, and just going back to the doc, like there's that like kind of letdown for you in it. And like, you're like, I still think I could make it. Like, and it's almost just like, I don't know whether you believe that still or knew that you needed to hear it to still be okay, or what that was. But I think I felt that a lot of days where you're just like, I could take that cubicle job or that sales job and have that security, but I won't be happy. You know, it's like all wonder. And so it's just like, but it's hard, like, to know when you're pushing past that point and you have to kind of take those signs. It's hard.
It's crazy you say that, because no one never told me. My own parents, they, you know, like we said, it's just life. Like, didn't nobody tell me like, oh, when you left St. Joe's, like, oh, you're gonna be all right. Like, you could still make it. You still could become a good ball player. Like, no one never had to tell me that. I had to really believe that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it just goes back to what I keep telling my kids. And I know it's just to tell them that every day, because they get hit down so much. Yeah. Because everyone is telling you all the reasons why you can't do something, that it's so hard to kind of push past that. But I think just committing, you know, I was just committed to it and just knew that if I was ready for that opportunity, that I would break through. Like, this writer on a show where I was an assistant, like, pulled me aside, and I think just out of boredom would arrange the sodas in the fridge, like all facing the same way. Just because I'm like probably out of boredom and free time just at work, but just like took pride in what how the kitchen was stocked. And
Right.
he's just like, man, like when you get to do what you want to do, it's going to be amazing. The fact that you take this much pride in the shittiest job in the path that you want to go down. He's like, I know you're going to do great when you get that opportunity. And so like moments like that help balance out that other noise.
Yeah.
And so I was really lucky to also have supportive people in that circle that were balancing out that kind of teeter-totter of negativity with, but then what are you going to do? You're going to go work here and be unhappy and kind of build you back up. So that's, surrounding yourself with positivity, I think too, was a huge piece for me, and just people that would kind of go against that for sure. Cause you believe people, it's like,
Yeah. I mean, and to be in that world, Jason, that film industry world is so competitive and subjective. And, I mean, you spent years in as assistant, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
How the hell did you convince Mark Cherry to give you a shot at writing?
Yeah. I think it was interesting, like, cause when I went there, I'd been an assistant for a long time, and he had, I think, like 2 or 3 assistants that were already working for him, and it was just like, can I just field all the shit that comes from them and be next to you and go to set with you and go to the edit bay, be in the writer's room. And so I think, and he was someone who very much liked kind of teaching or involving, like if you were interested and asked questions, he'd be willing to tell you and bring you in. And so I was really lucky that
so
he was willing to do that.
This the Jason being a sponge right now.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure. And like, and knew that no one was going to offer that to me. And so that's the other part of it. It's like willing to put in the work, but also not asking for something that's so wildly outside of what you should ask for, but what's reasonable. It's like, I've done this for a long time. I have the experience. Can I go do this? And so when I do ask that, he's not going to offer it. But when I do ask it, it's like, well, yeah, you can do that. That makes sense. And so I think like with that approach, working there, it was never kind of beating down his door asking for that script or that opportunity, but was just the same version of arranging those soda cans.
Did he see your hunger?
Yeah, for sure. I think because he worked so hard, and he would be on set at 7 watching rehearsal in the writer's room all day, and then in post afterwards. And so that extra credit of not having to be on set for me till the room started at 10 a.m. But I think just that showing up at 7 every day and with not having to. So it's like they always say like the first to get there and the last to leave a gym kind of mentality, like again with sports, like just carried that over. And I knew that if I just kept my head down and worked hard and did that extra part of it, just showed that I wanted to be a part of it, that opportunity would come. And upper level writer asked to read something of mine, and it kind of trickled around the staff and eventually got to Mark, and he's like, this is fucking great. Like, why didn't you hand this to me? It's like, cause I didn't want to like I knew once, like that opportunity would come if I just kept working hard. And so I think like having that approach certainly gave me that opportunity where again, it just made sense. It wasn't asking for something outside of the realm of what I was ready for. And I knew once I got that opportunity that it wasn't going to be outside of what I could live up to. Like I knew that I would probably get that shot once or twice with being on a show. And so it was just that fear. It drove me to push past the shittiness of the job to make sure I was ready for when that opportunity hit. And so when it did, it was like new, because I've been in the room and done that work, what they expected of a writer that's just joining for a freelance episode, and what's expected of a lower level writer when the upper levels are talking, or when they're onto something, when to pull back or when to have input. And so it's like, and it is this rhythm and kind of music that happens in the room when writers are talking, where you can disrupt it very easily and throw it off. But I just knew what that was and what was expected. And so then was hired, I think like a month after that initial script, and freelance up to staff. And then just, I've honestly, like for 22 years now, just kept that same mentality of just like head down and just not get caught up in what the show is, because we have the same job. Like I go in and do the same job whether you've heard of the show or not. And so it's really ego that makes me like the bigger shows more than the other ones, because you've heard of it and there's clout that comes with that. But I'm doing the same job every day. So it's like managing those highs and lows of whatever show you're on, because it is really, for me, loving that process and that job rather than the shine of what a certain show gives you, or it's just that process, I think, is what's up for me.
Can you break it down for us a little bit? Are you writing just per episodes, or are you writing on a series of episodes?
Yeah, so we all are hired to a staff, and so like the staff of a show will come up with story, and literally every show I've been on is kind of operated a little bit differently. Where some shows you'll all work on a script, or some shows people will go off for a week or a couple of weeks and come back with a script, and then the showrunner will take a pass at it. And so it just kind of varies every show, but essentially like you're all working on the same kind of storyline and what happens in the season, and then we'll be assigned an episode. And sometimes you write very little of that episode because you're group writing someone else's, or you're covering set for someone else because they haven't been on set before, and so it's like or it's all yours and then the showrunners weighed in. So it's just kind of all over the place with how that process works, but that's what keeps it interesting too. Yeah,
right. And speaking to that, is there at any point in time that you're working on multiple projects, and if so, how do you manage that time in between working on those multiple projects at one time?
I think it's for me, it's I think just the way I started in this business was sneaking in. Once I sign a contract for a show, I'm right away like, okay, I have this, but then whenever this ends, and they all end, what's next? Like, how am I setting myself up to get the next show? And so I'm very deliberate about the types of shows I pick, kind of if I have options, that's going to round out the types of show I can be up for, just to try and maximize the potential to keep going. And then when I don't want to, if I'm already getting off late and the kids are down, I'll stay and work on my own material, because I know that this show I'm on will end. And so it's constantly kind of working on my own material to eventually have a show of my own, which is the goal for me, so it's setting myself up to do that and being patient with it. So it's like climbing the ladder. Now I'm a co-EP, and so I could climb that ladder and hit all the runs and not skip any. And so I know that when I get that opportunity, just like that first script, I'll be capable and able to execute the show, because I've been through it for this long.
Now, I thought this too, Jason, like, do you have an agent that represents you?
Yeah. So there's an agent and a manager and a lawyer that all kind of function in different ways. And
like who would be the one calling for your next gig? Like, when this show ends, you done with that, who will be calling saying, hey, I'm Jason Ganzel's rep. He's a great writer. He's the shit. And he want to work on your show.
Maybe I should make you my agent. That sounds good. I think my agent, Doug Frank, who I've been with ever since that first script at Desperate, is phenomenal and really fights for me, but is also has a family, is a nice guy, but also can get shit done. So he walks that line in a really way that I respect. And so he's constantly on the prowl. And my managers, Zadok Angel and Dave Brown, are super bright guys and are constantly kind of looking for books to option, and looking for like Dave Brown brought me this project by Matt Barnes and Kevin Garnett, where it's just like, I know you'd be great with this, and so I want you to talk to them about this. And so they're constantly trying to generate material, which is nice, because I have the stack of projects that I've come up with that I don't have to burn through necessarily, but will be there for after other things hit, hopefully, that will be easier to get those made, I guess, later on down the road. But then have helped me like be ready for quickly being able to put together these shows, because I put in that work on putting together pilots previous to them then reaching out with projects now. And so the managers kind of have been great about facilitating those meetings with people. And a lot of it's been sports. It's funny, like the brand is just kind of over and over again, because there's not typically a lot of writers, I think, that were previous athletes. And even all the shows I've been on, like talking about sports, it's just like, oh, it's like annoyed by it. And I don't know if it's like getting bumped in the hallways in high school or what it is, or just haven't been around a lot of athletes. But so there's it's been great for an opportunity to work with people that I look up to, and just like, it's crazy to be able to sit down, you know, with Matt, and just the way he talks about mental health and the stuff that he would go through, and then also have to step out on the court and perform in that capacity time after time. It's just, it's really eye-opening for sure.
I want to ask you this, Jason, about the shows, and maybe you've been through this, maybe other writers go through this. At the close of a show, is there a sense or worry about, man, where the next check coming from? I mean, how far is this deal going, and how do you handle that?
I mean, initially it's terrifying. Like, especially my mom, who was in finance, like I said, in banking, was just like, so you got fired? Like, are you going to move back? Like, what are you going to do now? Like, the show is over. You know, it's just like, what do you do now? Because it's hard. Like, it's hard to keep a job. It's hard to get that opportunity. But in a lot of ways, you're starting over again.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just been constantly trying to be someone who shows up and just works hard, doesn't cause drama, doesn't treat people like shit, you know, just like is so that you are recommended. Because I think it's like it's word of mouth. It is subjective. And so if you're someone that people can rely on, but also you can sit in a room with them for 12 hours as you're working on a show, or 10 hours, whatever the day is, like, that's a big part of it. And so I think there's a lot of talented people. And again, on sports teams, like, there's a lot of people that should be in the league, but can't be on a team. And it's not worth that additional thing. And some people are so talented that people give that exception, but ultimately it causes problems and it's a hassle. You know, it's like, I mean, you look at teams that are well-rounded and all kind of function together in the way they play, even, it just works. It's like those old Spurs teams, you'd watch that. It's just like, everyone knew what they had to do and showed up, and you just felt them play with this like effortlessness of just like their approach was just all team. So I think like having that mentality is served me well. And I think you just trust that all that work is just moving in the same direction, and you create a name for yourself maybe, and people do talk. And so your name's kind of put out there a bit, and it's pretty small. It's weird. It's a small business. And so to get in and stay in is tough if you're difficult or if you don't perform, you know? And so I think it's just trusting the process. You know?
Now, Jason, we know it's a performance-based business. Like, you got to be a good writer. I mean, to get shit picked up and put on TV and green-lighted and all that. I mean, like you said, you have to treat people nice and not cause problems.
Yeah.
And I've known in that world, you said it's real small, but have you seen a lot of minorities have been, you kind of kicked that door in? You know, because I know one of our comedians here in Chicago, Dion Cole, he was a writer for, what's the comedian name with the red hair? Will, the comedian name?
Carrot Top?
Carrot Top?
No, not Carrot Top. He had a late night talk show too. The real goofy one.
Oh, Conan?
Conan.
Yeah.
Dion Cole, he was a writer on that show. And what was talked about, I say at least about 10 years ago, you know, they always said that most of the shows that come on these, you know, networks, big networks, there's not people that look like, you know, us in those rooms writing. You know what I'm saying? So have you seen an increase in minorities breaking that barrier, breaking that door down?
I think so. It's interesting. Like in 20 years, it's changed. It's kind of sad. Like when I was starting out and not knowing what race I was, there were a few programs that you could submit yourself for, but not knowing, I was like, well, I'm not white, obviously, but like, if I don't know for sure, I just had the character, I think, to not say I'm that and take a spot. I've heard of people tanning to say they're Latin and to get a spot. And so it's like, but I think that sifts itself out and that character eventually catches up. And I think, so for me, it's, and it's sad that I was in some ways glad that I elevated past that point where, through the programs that the studio will pay to round out a room with a diverse hire. And so it won't come out of the show's budget. And so, but being there and seeing how someone's brought in and treated there, it was really sad when I started, like feeling like thankful that I didn't go through that program and was based on writing and not checking a box. I think like since then, and after Desperate, finding that I'm Cuban and black, like suddenly studios are like, oh, so let's start checking me, you know? And so you feel that, I think, and that it's so frustrating to hear white writer friends of mine that are like, oh, so hard to be a white male in this town right now. And you think like you look at the percentages still of white writers on shows, it's like 80s, 90%. I was like, and all of me just wants to be like, you mean what it's like for us every like always, you know, it's just it's so wild that, yeah, like once you, so it in a lot of ways I feel it's really complicated because I think studios are doing their best to start to diversify rooms, and it's with great intention. I think it's forcing a little bit people together.
Yeah.
And when you get there, you need to trust your team. It's just it's a team. You need to trust that you're all there. And so it's like this, it creates this kind of like, oh, there for that. It creates a weird divide a little bit in some ways, but for me, it's like that's worth getting a more diverse room to get people into the business to start to change it, because it's been slow for sure. And it's been so slow, and to hear people act like it's this wave of change and being white's over. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure you're doing fine. Right. It's just now you're seeing how competitive it is for you previously on shows where there's, say, a staff of 10 and there's 7 people not of color. And then I walk in and fill black or Cuban, you know, it's like, okay, now we stop looking for that. We stop looking for that. It's like, what do you stop looking for that? Like, so it's just, it's crazy to think, to hear them say that when there's no cap on them being brought into rooms, or there's no number that you hit and then start looking back to your friends. And so it's really complicated. I think it's definitely getting better. And I think it's reflected in the types of shows that are on that feel like a wider experience. And I think that's why, you know, the Queen of the South is so cool, because it feels like you're drawn into that world, but still it's like a cartel show hitting all the stereotypes, and it's done so well, and the writing's so good, and the cast is unbelievable. But also, what does it look like when it's not a cartel? The Matt Barnes project is a NBA phenom who grew up in South Central and like has everything to lose. And we've seen that movie, that show, that Boys in the Hood, and they all dress that way. But the writer on it, CJ Mack, is a guy who grew up in it. And like they don't fucking wear that shit. Like they own the hotels that the basketball players are staying at, and they are in suits, and they're at Riviera Country Club, fucking swinging the clubs with your agent. And like, but that it's evolved. And so for me, it's always taking those kind of premises that Matt came, and that's all about mental health. And he's been so open and honest about it. And we've worked with the head of the NBA's mental health department and worked for hours just making sure that we get it right, because it's this opportunity to not show just a world that we recognize and people that look like us, but that are honest about what they're going through. And I think that's what was so impactful about what you guys did. And honestly, just is such a part of what I try and do. It's like, I related to you and knew nothing about what it was like growing up in Chicago. Like, man,
it's so crazy.
You know?
It's so crazy now how social media plays a role in people's personal lives. You know, even, you know, Matt Barnes, the stuff he went through with his ex-wife and Derek Fisher and that whole thing, that shit played out on the, you know, through social media. You know what I'm saying? Like, how could that not affect him mentally? You know what I'm saying? On a daily fucking basis. Like, you know, I mean, it's just,
and I'm guilty
that
of
was
it
just
too.
crazy to deal with.
Yeah. And I'm guilty of like what I thought he would be like meeting him based on that. And it was, you know, like hard an impression of what he would be like watching him play and the way he played. And you're like, I know who that dude is. And you sit with him so fucking intellectual and so witty and smart and like thoughtful and vulnerable in a way. It was really shocking. You know, it's hard. Like, we all want these different things, but we also bring that to the table too, of our bias and our whatever, you know, and I definitely brought that. And so I'm definitely guilty of all those things that I'm looking for change in. But it's just, it's so cool that people like him are willing to be honest and open for that change, I think. And so I've been really lucky to kind of,
Did you know how crazy Kevin Garnett was before you saw his documentary?
No, I mean, kind of. I mean, he's so, like, I've never seen anyone play with that, just like pure, authentic rage is the wrong word, but just like competitiveness and just like
him and Samuel L. Jackson is the king of all cuss words.
Yeah, but he had to be. He was like the first high school. It's like, I'm a high school kid. Like, I got to show you that I'm just as much of a man. And like, I would have to imagine
different.
Yeah, he had to be different. But I imagine he went home some nights and was like, "Fuck, I just
listen." I knew he was different, and I didn't even. We was playing in the same gym. Like, he came and worked out, but we wasn't there the day that Kevin McHale and all the Zeke and them and all them. We wasn't there that day.
Yeah.
But when he said that he talked to Pat Riley, what the fuck he talking about? Why he here? I'm finna show this motherfucker why he here. Yeah. That's when I knew he was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. But just like to win. Like, it's that
like
thing.
This
like,
Pat Riley you talking about, dude. Like, what do you mean? Like, why the fuck he here? Like, you a high school kid. You don't mean shit to him. Watch, I'm finna make him mean. I'm finna make him. Like, I'm like, wow.
It's just wired different. Like, that Jordan doc, too. It's like, everyone's like, no, I didn't like playing with him. But, like, we won championships.
Right.
He made me way better than I would have been without him there. It wasn't fun, but it's not supposed to be fun. If you know, it's like, if you're dedicated to it, it's like the fun's when the champagne and the goggles are on. You know,
Will played with MJ. He know about him, even in pickup.
I played with both of them, but that's a whole different another story. But let me ask you this, Jason, man.
Yeah,
and this is just a little shift. There's been this massive industry shift from traditional network to cable to premium cable to streaming channels. Can you talk about their programming styles and how they differ in the terms of how it affects you as a writer and a producer?
I think it's created so many more opportunities for space and real estate to have the safety of doing the types of content that's been done before, and executives know work, and now they have those that are doing it, and now maybe are opening up the opportunities for different types of stories from different people that have not traditionally gotten those opportunities. And so I think it's providing, I think certainly people of color, like an opportunity to tell more stories than just that tight-knit group of network, where before, if you didn't staff in the spring, you were just off till next spring. And because there was like the pilot season, and you hope your pilot would go, you hope you get on a pilot, or you hope your show will be asked back next year. And so what it's done is created so much opportunity for writers to throughout the year be available and open if you're not working on a show for a streamer that's jumping up in the fall versus so it's like created this kind of year-round thing of opportunity, which has been great. So it cuts down on the orders. I think the Desperate Housewives and Grays, those old model of doing, and they still exist here and there, but the 22 episode a season, big shows and big budget and all that stuff. You feel that shift certainly doing 10 or doing 13. But then it's fun. It like keeps you fresh and keeps you, you tell 10 and you tell 13 and that's it. So it's not that kind of constantly spinning plates trying to get to the end of the season, but you're compacting stories. So it's, I think maybe a little more compelling, but I think the answer there would be that it's providing space to allow diverse groups that haven't had a voice previous an opportunity and a willingness to extend that out a little bit, which is exciting. It's just like, it's like, it feels like a cool time, and it feels like I feel for that white male writer who's having a harder time than ever, because it is harder than it's been in the past. Like I get that certainly. And I see friends that are struggling. It's like, it's harder than it used to be for you, but maybe that leveling out is allowing us to create content that we all can acknowledge is the world we're living in and start to understand each other better. I feel like it's such a cool opportunity to be in the business that allows people to start a conversation, because we're so locked in these algorithms of what we believe and the people we surround ourselves with, that to have a different thought than your little circle is really tough to do. So it's exciting for me. Like I feel like it's like this cool opportunity to start conversations that's outside the algorithm of your feed or whatever, or who you're talking to. So it's a cool time to be in it, I think, for sure.
Let me take this a little bit deeper too, because I know we taking up your time, and I promise you, we're gonna get you through this. But there's been so much experimenting in the delivery of content. I want to ask you about like the platforms like Quibi, who was focusing on episodes of 10 minutes or less for their listeners. And interesting enough, they raised like $1.75 billion in 2019 and backed by the big networks and cable companies. And then they launched it in 2020 and essentially shut down, but they sold it for $100 million in January 2021. Can you tell us about that and what happened?
I think it just shows what we probably already know, is that people are craving stories of people that look like them. And I can grow up watching Dukes of Hazzard and The Fall Guy, but I don't know a fuck about what it's like being a white dude with a fucking car that talks like, and so to watch a show of someone that looks like me, it's just like, oh shit, I can tap into this in a different way. It's like, it means more. It's not just entertainment. It's like, this is the world I'm living in, and it's informing my life as opposed to just being this entertainment. So I think like we're seeing the value of that, whether it's a 10-minute spot or whether it's a streaming that drops 13 episodes and I'm fucking up all night watching Succession one after another, because you just crave, like, it's just like, this is different. And so I think it's really cool to be able to have access to stuff like that, and that more people are having the opportunity to tell stories. I
personally like the little 10-minute deals, probably because I'm impatient right now at this point.
I know, that's the thing too. It's like the 140 characters. It's like, I don't have time. Like, so maybe that's part of it too. We're just like so impatient for what we want when we want it, that maybe that's, I like to think that if it's compelling enough that maybe people are still willing to sit down for something. And I think you see it when it is, and it's just like a thing that you can get on a subway and 80% of the people on it have watched it. And then it's like, you're on to something. I think it's like, I understand the value of a specific experience being depicted in TV, where it's like, if you're from Chicago and Southside, like, this, and it's authentic to you watching it. But like, for me, it's just trying to make 80% of the subway that you didn't have to grow up there to feel that. And that was so compelling about The Wire, and so compelling about some of the shows you talked about, like Sopranos. I don't know the fuck about the mafia, but at the heart of that, it's family. And it's like this lovable guy kind of on the inside, but has to do despicable things, and Succession, same kind of thing, where it's like, it's like the human nature versus the backdrop. Because I have a very dumbed down version of TV, and maybe they teach you in film school not to think this way. But to me, if characters are compelling, they could be in Reno, they could be in Chicago, they could be doctors, lawyers, that's just wardrobe. But if you put four people together and the dynamic is this, it doesn't matter what race they are, it doesn't matter. And that's what I think, like, growing up watching the Cosby Show, it's like, oh, there's some people that look like me, and but actually they're dealing with the same kind of family issues that I can understand, that's relatable to the masses. So
it's so interesting that you say that, because when I go to the gym and I'm working out, man, there's always this little old lady in front of me. She's on the machine, but she always have Blackish on, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah,
I'm like, this little old white lady is watching Blackish,
Right. I love
she
that.
always got Blackish on. Watching a TV show, little old white
That's
lady,
great.
but she's watching Blackish, and I just go like, wow. But it's absolutely what you were talking about. It's
honest,
it's the compelling stories in it, but yet telling their messages at the same time. But
I think that's
Jason,
when people hear it too. Different people, like, I think she's willing to buy in on this is a family show. And then it's this great opportunity to draw someone in that wouldn't watch that show. And it's not about the Black experience, but along the way, it's like, I know we said it's about family and you can relate to that, but also here's what it's like being a Black family in the world we live in. And then she's listening. And so I think, like, as I'm given projects and trying to come up with projects, it's sifting through that. This is the anthem of that experience. It's like, no, I want to do about mental health and an athlete that's dealing with that has the Black experience. And then, so I feel like you're then able to get in that old lady's head as she's on that treadmill, and like, she's like, oh fuck, I look at the world different. Like, and I understand it different, and it wasn't forced on me, and it's not this agenda, and they're not like, it's like shut up and dribble type reaction, but it's like, oh shit. Like, and so to me, that's like, I think maybe catching up on not having any of that experience growing up and understanding race in those ways feels like this huge kind of weight on me now, to catch up to it a little bit with using that platform a little bit to help me understand it too. Like, I'm like a work in progress too, and I think we all are,
Yeah, every day we are. I think these three shows is still happening in real life today. Good Times, Roseanne, and The Cosby Show.
Yeah.
For real. Them three shows is still happening today in real life.
What you talking about? My house is all Brady Bunch. No, I'm just But man, speaking of shows, man, we want to dig into some of your current projects, man. Talk to us about Naomi and Soul and Fury with Debbie Allen and Terrence Howard, man. What's going on there?
Well, the Debbie Allen and Terrence Howard project was this tremendously talented writer. Theo had this show that had like 5 episodes done, and was asked to supervise the show in the pilot. And you hear that and you're like, okay, this is going to be a lot of work. Like someone who hasn't written before, but this guy Theo's a fucking monster, and just grew up in Chicago and is a student of this the history and culture, and knew of this hotel in Vegas, and has connections with Joe Louis, who opened the Moulin Rouge, the black-owned casino in Vegas during, and so Sammy would be performing across town and like couldn't drink after the show, and Frank would be like, "Fuck that!" And Frank like stood up for a lot of shit at the time where it was really tough standing up to it, but he was like, "Then let's go there." And so the Moulin Rouge kind of became this hub for musicians and actors and dancers and culture, where that segregation a little bit, you could just step in there and exist just based on what we're talking about. It's not about race, it's about music, it's about being an athlete, it's about what you bring to that table outside of what you look like. And so it's a really special kind of place that was open 6 months and then mysteriously like shut down. So, you know, at a time when the mob ran Vegas, like but for us just to like to carry forward that idea of a place that could exist in that hate and chaos. But to the old lady on the treadmill, it's also an opportunity to reflect a show in the 50s that we're still talking about the same shit today. But it's not a show about Black Lives Matter, because she's not watching that. Like, but it's a show about music and hope of making it. But you're realizing as you're watching it, it's like, that's the same shit that they're out there asking for and now demanding more. And it's been going on since then. And so I think it's like everything I'm trying to like work on and do has that approach, which is the opportunity to say something that's going to get to someone who doesn't already think that and give them pause. But to still be doing Blackish, where it's a show about family, a show about love, but also let's also let you know what it's like, you know, and what we're kind of going through. So that's really appealing to me. And Debbie Allen's just like the best person on earth. She's just like,
I'm sure
she's the best, man. Just like fights for everyone that needs to be fought for. And just, if you're ever feeling tired, like at Grey's, I'm exhausted being on set for hours, and she come in and she's dressed up. It's like, where are you going? She's like, oh, I have this benefit after this. And you're just like, how the fuck? Like, I'm dead at the end of
a benefit,
like long week, and she's off to like some benefit and raise money and some charity. And just as like that grind and that hustle is so inspiring. And so I've been really lucky to be around people like that kind of fuel that. But yeah, she's amazing.
I love Debbie Allen. I remember I was so shocked when I found out her and Felicia Rashad were sisters.
Yeah.
And when she was on Fame, I was like, I want to teach it like her.
I think we all did.
I want to teach it like her. I never missed class.
That's right. I think we all did. Yeah, we didn't see too many teachers like that growing up. We didn't see that.
And I think like, and the other stuff that I have, two of them are a little bit crossover in content, but the one with Carmelo Anthony and Peter Dinklage is, and you guys would know, Findlay Prep was a school in Vegas that's now shut down, but was this like super unique program that was 14 or 12 kids at Findlay Prep that were on the basketball team, and that was the school. And they like rented and used space at an elementary school in classrooms and all lived with the coach in-house. And so it was like this, like competing against Oak Hill and IMG and all these like crazy kind of juggernauts, but had this different approach and recruited worldwide. And so you get athletes from all over the world. So it's such a interesting Friday Night Lights family drama, not about sports, but about people from all walks of life coming together for a common goal, and what you sacrifice leaving your families for a better future, or like in that pressure. And you guys lived it more than anyone, but like that pressure that's on you knowing the sacrifices your family's making by sending you. And if you don't come home with it, what does that mean? And what does that mean for your family? It's just the things that these kids are giving up now are on the level that you guys kind of went through, but then are also given these opportunities to be discovered and found, and kind of nurtured.
Will this show or talk about the kids that came before the school closed? Like, because Findlay Prep, because
it's gone. Yeah,
they was around. I mean, they had been a well respected program for some years.
Huge.
Way
it was
more than well respected. They were the program.
Yeah. And number one draft picks and just the success rate of high school to NBA players was better than Oak Hill. You know, it's just like all these like established places, and quickly became that over. You know, just were well
they
funded.
They were Kentucky before Kentucky.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
And maybe it's a reason I've been able to keep working, but maybe it'll be the end of my career. But I'm still have Baracco bean burrito and hard taco mentality.
I love it.
That's right.
And it's probably gonna fuck me over at some point. But like, I've seen that show. You know what that is. And so for me, and I think having daughters and feeling the impact of Kobe, who made a lot of mistakes and was thought of a certain way and felt like on this redemption path and exposing the WNBA and really pushing that initiative and forward, that like, I've seen that guy's show. I've seen what, like, you guys started that in 94, and we've been doing that show, and we've seen the impact of the Dream Team and what that did, bringing Dirk, bringing Djokovic, and like, we've done all that. And so for me, it's like, I want to depict like what's possible, I guess, instead of what we already are living in some ways. I think that was a lot of what Grays did and the impact that you can have. And so I feel like there's these girls around the country at their local high school just balling out because no one around them is competitive. And there are avenues for them. Like there's IMG, and so these places are starting up. But what does women's hoops look like if those 8th grade girls are given the same opportunity that we've been giving guys for 20 years? Like, what does that league look like? And so, went back to them and said, like, I know you guys love the banners and what this show represents. And so my approach was, Findlay was like, played hoop in Vegas and owned like every car dealership and started this school for the boys program. But what does it look like when that coach is now without a Findlay Prep school and is working at a car dealership and is missing that feeling of the sound of a buzzer and the squeak and that sound of a net hitting that you guys hear? I know, and like me, it's just there's like, that's my favorite music, because that sound of the ball going through a net, And so like, yeah.
Let me tell you why that show is going to be so good, because to the viewer, they only know what they read on the internet.
Yeah.
And the way this is going to be shot and be told, and from the truth and from the mouths of the players, of the people who was there.
Yeah.
They go, oh.
It's going to be really interesting. And just
very interesting.
Yeah. And pushing my like thing that I'm interested about, with different cultures and race all being kind of jammed together, that each episode will kind of focus on one of the girls and they'll start to understand each other in different ways. And they're from all places of the world. And so you're taking the stereotypes that we have, the way I thought Matt Barnes was going to be sitting down with them, and blows that out of the window with who they really are and what they really bring to the table. And so that's been really kind of a thing that I'm really excited about, in terms of just, it's a thing that doesn't really exist. And so we've reached out to like Candace Parker to be a part of it, like just to hear what she went through. I want to talk to Cheryl Swoops and like Cheryl Miller, and just like these juggernauts way ahead of their time, but the avenues and lanes that they had, and to watch your brother Reggie have these opportunities and commercials and all this stuff. It's really interesting to me.
I like when you say like, you know, we've seen that story, like that story, like, and it goes back to what William said. The hoop dreams never stops. Like it never ends. Like it hasn't ended with us.
Yeah.
His 3 sons picked it up and moved on with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My kid, my 14-year-old kid has it now. Candace Parker just won her hoop dream here in Chicago.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it does not stop. It just is it's just a different starring role for that individual.
And the great thing about that is we get to hear other people tell that story. That's what's so fascinating, man. That's what I love about what you're doing. Because actually I was gonna even, you kind of answered my question that I was going to already ask you about, like what other things you would like to tackle in the industry. And you've already shared that with us. But I wanted to add to that. Do you see yourself doing movies if the opportunity came along?
Yeah. I've done one before. Showrunner that I worked for had the rights to the world's first hacker, kind of basically, and wrote this like bestseller and kind of gave us the rights. And so, and there was something so satisfying about telling a story that has an ending. Because for me, if it has an ending, the show's over. And so it's like, we don't get that. And so there's something very appealing about it. But for me, like, and I don't know if it's sports, but I like the day-to-day. I like the valuing what actors bring. I like what costume brings. I like what the director brings. And so I think like that day-to-day process, I've really kind of fallen in love for, that I feel like maybe would be a little bit lost in doing features where I just hand it over and then they go kind of make it. And so I think it would depend on how it's set up and done, but there's definitely something appealing about knowing you can tell a story that has a natural kind of conclusion, because it's rare that we get to arc it out that way and have the ending that we want to tell, you know. But yeah.
Hey, Jason, talk to us about that scandal Grey's Anatomy lady, Shonda.
That I won't do. There's a couple.
Hey,
I was
man,
like, which thing are you talking about?
Look, I have to tell you, don't tell nobody else though. Scandal was my show. I had to watch Scandal. I had to see what the president was doing.
Yeah.
and that whole crew. I love that, but she's groundbreaking in what she came into the TV industry and did. Can you just speak to her greatness and how she's opened doors for all minorities, men and women?
I mean, it's interesting because even being at Grey's, you know, the amount of contact I had with her wasn't a ton, but she does walk into a room and like you feel it. Like there's a presence and a thing that feels to me like it has to be so loud because she's been told so much that she's not a thing, you know? And so
wow.
I don't know if that's what it is, but that was my impression of her, that it's just like, this is the story as I want to tell it, and you can't tell me it's wrong because it's my story type approach.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting working kind of in the wake of Shonda in terms of being behind kind of shows that she's set up and working with people that work with her in that capacity. And so it's hard to speak on her necessarily, but her influence and just opening almost just doors for others like her that look like her. It's like, oh, there's stories there and there's worlds there that we haven't explored. And so it's just changed the industry, I think, and it's provided room for others to follow, and for Tyler Perry and Ava DuVernay, like Ava's doing Naomi, which I'm on now, and it's just you see what that's done for the industry, and so it's really impactful, and it's interesting. Her approach to race is a little bit where we differ, and I don't know which one's right because they're both, to me, compelling. Like she paints a world where you can be the head of a hospital and be a Black female, and it's not the story. Because why should it be? Which is amazing.
Yep, right. You hit it right on the head, too. That's her.
That's her. But I know that journey to get to the head of the hospital as a Black woman is a story and is a struggle. And the value of showing that to a high school girl who's deciding what she wants to be, it's like, let's not maybe pretend that it's just that easy. But if we don't talk about it, you'll get used to it. So it's like this weird balance. Like, and she just does it so well and has created proof of concept so many times over and over again that there's so much value in obviously what she's doing. But I'm I think just as a writer interested in exploring that journey more and pushing for what the world can maybe look like. That it's not so much a story either, you know. It's complicated, yeah.
You think about it, the Olivia Pope character, Kerry Washington played.
Oh, God.
Dude, every Black mama in the inner city, that's Olivia Pope. She putting out fires.
Right. Right.
She got to go down to the jail to go bail her son out to whoop him on his way back to the crib. Yeah. She got to tell the daughter, hey, don't hang around that fast girl, the crowd and all that. You got, she's the Olivia. The Olivia Pope is all Black mamas.
What was her famous line? How many times we done heard mama say that? I will handle it.
That's so great. Like, I feel like Shonda's like so smart about like making it authentic without making it be the story of the Black experience. Like it's such a, like I said, it's such a tricky line to walk to get that old lady on the treadmill, but to have every woman in Chicago be like, that's her, you know, and that's someone I know. And so she's just like so proven at mastering that line. And being able to walk it and do both things, you know, which is so hard to do.
Well, Jason, I want to tell you this, man. We applaud you because the things that you're doing, the representation, man, that you stand for, you know, we know it's difficult being in Hollywood. I mean, it is what it is. So we applaud you, man. We want to thank you for being on the show. We got 2 more questions for you. I got one for you. Then my dog gonna hit you with his final question. I meant to ask you this earlier because we want to make sure people know that the athlete is still in you. What was your nickname when you were younger?
Like derogatory term? No, like
hey, whatever it was. No, we'll take it. Whatever it was, we'll take it.
Like my dad called me Champ, and so Champ was like a thing younger. And then I don't know that I don't think I was good enough to have like a skit to my little nickname. Like I don't think I was at that level to get the nickname level. You know what I mean? Like
they ain't even abbreviated and just say, hey, right. Jay. Good pass, Jay.
Jay for sure. Like, I mean, I got fucked with a little bit at in college, just being other and didn't know what I was. And so and we had a big race divide on that team my sophomore year where the captain was a white dude and the best player hands down was Black dude freshman and just could hoop. And that came to a head. And so the thing that I was told the most is you one of us. And it was at the time I was there's more of y'all. So
right.
I'm with y'all.
That was his nickname.
For them, it was never, yeah. And so that's been a common thing and it was just pulled into it, and it's so amazing to be or feel outside of a culture. And and I'm fucking it up by what it is, but the nod, as I say, or that pulling you in is that sense of community that without even knowing it, was happening all along, which is really impactful and resonates. But yeah, so I don't know that Trey was one. Like, so I was just like a shooter. I was just like a.
We gonna
was like.
We gonna call
Trey
you JG,
like,
man.
Yeah.
JG. We gonna call you
one.
JG.
Yeah, JG one is one for sure. But I was like a streaky, like point guard, but sit in the corner and catch and shoot guy that could hit 8 in a row and then miss 20 type dude, like the Kono type. Like I wasn't breaking anyone down off a dribble. Like I would get fucked up in like street, like outside of a gym where it's like a little windy, or like you got to go to the hoop. Like no,
JG too plain because you was, if you say you could hit 8 from the corner, now we gonna go with that. You was good. So because you're a good writer, you're a good writer, and it was a good basketball player, you're gonna be called Jay Good.
I like it.
That's
I like
right.
it.
Jay Good. I like that.
It is. That's right.
Good at writing, good at basketball. That's what's
you're
up.
hitting 8 in the corner and you can't hoop.
That's right.
that don't happen.
Well, Jason, like my man said, man, just the last question, man. Yeah. What's the next chapter in Jason Ganzel's hoop dream?
Cashing in, not financially, but by giving the opportunity to create a show and have a show that's not putting in work for someone else. And that 20 years has been worth the opportunity to do that, I guess. And so it's hoping that I can cash that work in to get that opportunity, is that next kind of mountain I'm hoping to climb. And then once there, if I get that opportunity to kind of do what Sean has done and do what Ava's done, is just like become a place where people are bringing content and writers are coming in to a production company and creating content and shows that we haven't seen before, even though it's the same premise that we've heard before. And so that's, I think, the next step for me. If I'm wishing on something, yeah.
I can tell you this, my man, if you can keep that same Baracko attitude, it will happen.
I love that,
because
man.
the Baracko attitude got you to where you at right now, and you thriving. Yeah. So you keep that same Baracko attitude, you gonna cash in, baby.
I gotta pull a Shaq right now, man. You gotta put that on a t-shirt.
That's good.
The Baracko.
That's right. Oh man.
Well, I have to say before we jump off, just appreciate. I know I can't imagine what your journey was, and to be the first of something is always the hardest. And so I just appreciate the ups and downs that you guys must have been through, and the kind of impact that you've had on so many people, on that old woman on the treadmill type shit where you guys lived something and went through it. But it was so honest and sincere that it just transcended race and city. And really appreciate you guys, and that influence certainly impacted my path and stuff that compels me and things I'm interested in, for sure. So appreciate that.
I'm the gold of my era. I've been a trending topic. I'm as fly as a feather. My pockets macroscopic. See, with time I get better. I'm always in the action, kid. Know I got it locked from Chicago, where the toughest live. Concrete jungle, earn my stripes on the pavement there. You make it here, then you can make it anywhere. No comparison. Your game is embarrassing. No one can touch me. I'm all for going there again. Yeah, I think I'm ballin' like I'm Will Gates. I'm hoop dreaming, trying to fight against a sealed fate. More faith, think I'm ballin' like I'm Agee. I'm box office, and one day they gon' have to pay me. Yeah, I think I'm ballin' like I'm Will Gates. I'm hoop dreaming, trying to fight against a sealed fate. More faith, think I'm ballin' like I'm Agee. I'm box office, and one day they gon' have to pay me.
Hoop Dreams, the podcast, an Unlearning Network production. Written and produced by Arthur Agee, Will Gates, Matt Hoffer, with audio engineering from Matt Savage. For more episodes, check us out at www.unlearningnetwork.com.
Gotta be a dog to survive in this cold weather. Ice in my veins, no need for a warm sweater. I'm coming for it all, best believe I won't let up, yeah. Hey, I think I'm ballin' like I'm Will Gates. I'm hoop dreaming, trying to fight against a sealed fate. More faith, think I'm ballin' like I'm Agee. I'm box office and one day they gon' have to pay me. Yeah, I think I'm ballin' like I'm Will Gates. I'm hoop dreaming, trying to fight against a sealed fate. More faith, think I'm ballin' like I'm Agee. I'm box office and one day they gon' have to pay me.